Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Jobin, and you are listening to Time to Talk, a podcast for caregivers. This podcast is dedicated to helping family caregivers in Ontario. Through expert tips and resources, you will gain knowledge and validation for the ups and downs that come with caregiving. More importantly, you'll learn that you're not alone. It's so important to take this time for yourself. We're glad you're here. Today, we are joined by Trish Barbato, the president and CEO of the Arthritis Society. The Arthritis Society is the largest charitable funder of arthritis research in Canada and a leader in proactive advocacy, innovative information, and support that delivers better health outcomes for people living with arthritis. Trish, thank you so much for being here with us today.
I am so delighted to be here today.
We really want to create a space where Ontario caregivers can connect and share. And hopefully through our conversation today, Trish, we can all gain a little bit more insight into the special role and responsibility of a caregiver, and certainly your personal perspective on things, and as well give caregivers, for those with arthritis, resources for help.
Sounds great.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Arthritis Society and what specifically they do and what services they provide?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the Arthritis Society is a national charity. Have been around for about 75 years. It has a long history of advocacy, actually. It started with a volunteer out in BC who could not believe the state of children with rheumatoid arthritis who had debilitating and disforming joints. And so she really stirred things up and created, in fact, the Arthritis Society. It's part of our roots, along with a number of physicians. And so I would say that fiery cause is still part of the heart of the Arthritis Society. We have to advocate for people who are living with arthritis. And so that is part of our role. And we've had, with the pandemic, certainly areas like hip and knee replacements have been an area of advocacy for us. But the other areas that are important to us are fundraising for research. There are millions of people in Canada with arthritis. And one of the reasons I took this job, to be honest with you, is because I felt it was such an underdog, that arthritis really doesn't get its fair attention and its fair resources. When millions of people have it, it tends to be looked at as, oh, it's just arthritis, as if it's not that important and it doesn't make you completely debilitated in many cases. And so I felt it was just really important to raise awareness and to raise more money so that we can invest in research and understand the disease better. So that's a big thing that the Arthritis Society does. And also information and support, exactly the kinds of things. We have a guide for caregivers, and we have exercises. We have so much content on our website that is available to try and support people and their caregivers around how to help people with arthritis. And this is a long explanation of what we do.
Okay.
The newest thing, which I'm so excited about, is that we have launched an innovation strategy. And so we are working with entrepreneurs, and we're working with the broader entrepreneurial ecosystem to see how innovation can spark ideas that can help people with arthritis.
Well, that's great. And we thank you for that very thorough introduction to what the Arthritis Society does and an explanation of all those things. And when I hear you talk, there's so many things that come to mind. I had a family member that had osteoarthritis, so I have some familiarity with it. And, bringing up the pandemic and the wait lists for hip and knee replacements and things like that, at the time, prior to the pandemic, there was already a wait, and I know how difficult it was waiting for that procedure. So it's really important, the advocacy that you do. And then also, touching on my personal experience with this, I also realized that I, like many other people, don't really know that arthritis is a term to describe over 100 different diseases. So I'm thinking of one particular category under the umbrella term arthritis. So can you tell us more about what exactly arthritis is and the impacts on those who suffer from it?
Sure, absolutely. Well, arthritis is the most common chronic health condition in Canada. It affects 6 million Canadians. So that's about 1 in 5. And the thing that I think a lot of people do not know is that it affects people of all ages. This week, I was on a call with volunteer ambassadors for the Arthritis Society. They're helping us with our innovation strategy. They're such a wonderful group. And there was a mom on the call, and her child had been diagnosed at 3 years old with rheumatoid arthritis. And she is a caregiver. And parents of kids with arthritis are really courageous parents, because it can be such a devastating disease and to be diagnosed. So kids get arthritis. And then another thing that I think most people don't know is that arthritis is diagnosed at much younger ages. People tend to see it as an older person's disease. But in fact, most people with arthritis are under the age of 65. So many people have arthritis and they're at the prime of their careers or at their prime of their lives. They're starting to raise children and they are diagnosed with arthritis. And thank you for the mention of osteoarthritis. I think that this is probably, if I had to put it into two large buckets of these 100 diseases, you would have the osteoarthritis, which is the primary one. It's a progressive disease of the whole joint, and it breaks down both the cartilage and the bone. And this is something that I think is really, for me, was really interesting. Our chief science officer said there is a lot of biology going on that we do not understand. And I think, again, some people think, oh, it's just wear and tear and it's inevitable. And it's actually not inevitable. And it's not just wear and tear. In fact, there's a lot of things going on, both with the cartilage and with the bone. The body is not healing itself, and we don't know why. We don't understand why. So that's osteoarthritis. It's the main reason for knee replacements in Canada. So 99% of knee replacements are due to osteoarthritis and over 80% of hip replacements. And then the other large bucket would be rheumatoid arthritis. And this is an inflammatory disease. It's an autoimmune disease. This is where the body's immune system starts to mistakenly attack the lining of the joints. Very serious. And so when you think about lupus or gout, or there's a number, all kinds of different types of rheumatoid arthritis, and that's the other big bucket. So those are kind of the two areas of arthritis, and that can lead, it's really all about joints. Arthritis that's where the definition is. It's all around the joint. So it can be joint pain, joint stiffness, joint swelling. And when you have rheumatoid arthritis, one of the things I hear a lot from people who suffer is the fatigue. They can get fever, they can have fatigue, they can have different growths, and they can get the disformation in the joints. And so it's all about the joints, though, with arthritis.
Well, that's a great breakdown so that people understand better what we're talking about. And when we're talking about everyone from a child of 3 years of age right on through the spectrum of all the different age groups and all the different categories, I think it gives us a fuller picture of what a caregiver might be encountering as well. And I get the situation that, or I get the idea that no two situations are entirely alike. You did mention that the Arthritis Society has a caregiver guide that helps caregivers better understand caregiving for someone with arthritis. So can you tell us a little bit more about what that guide includes? It's a very thorough resource, so it would be great to find out a little bit more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing I'll just mention is that this guide, like all of the things that we do, are really prepared with people living with the disease and their caregivers. So we really work collaboratively with hundreds of volunteers that we have to make sure that our resources come from that perspective. And I actually, my mom is someone who lives with osteoarthritis in almost all her joints. So hands, shoulders, her back is really severely affected with osteoarthritis, her knees. And so when I kind of think about her, when I think about this caregiving guide, and trying to support her in all the different activities. So, whether it's making sure that someone is going with her to an appointment, whether it's around helping her, she's in pain a lot. And so how can you support someone who is in constant pain? How do you help with their sort of mental state.
Mhm.
So the guide addresses that. And I think it's, for arthritis, and particularly with the rheumatoid arthritis, with the autoimmune side, that new diagnosis can be devastating, completely devastating and totally overwhelming. Most people don't even know that when they're diagnosed that arthritis is even a possible illness that they could have as a, potentially a younger person. And so I think that event can be very traumatic for all the caregivers involved in that person's care. And so we walk through some of that in terms of how to be able to help them and assist them. And yeah, it's a great resource. I would recommend people check that out on our website, arthritis.ca.
You can make a difference in the caregiver community by becoming a volunteer. The Ontario Caregiver Organization is dedicated to providing caregivers the resources needed to help them be successful in their caregiving journey. Becoming a volunteer means you can help support caregivers in a variety of different ways. You can join a working group, an online forum, a focus group, or provide peer support. Volunteers can make a huge difference in a caregiver's life. Become a volunteer today at ontariocaregiver.ca. Now, back to our episode. Medical appointments are one of the first things on the list of caregiver resources that you have. Why is that important for caregivers to review?
Oh gosh, medical appointments, I think, can be so overwhelming. And especially with arthritis, it's a complex disease. And so I am still learning about it. I can't imagine, I would definitely want another person with me if I needed to try and untangle what was happening, especially with an early diagnosis. So I think it's that having that second set of ears at the appointment, making sure that questions are asked, that maybe someone else is taking some notes and really making sure that they can absorb all the answers and that they are asking where additional resources, really trying to understand, symptoms and perhaps helping the person who is affected with that symptom management and even understanding everything that's going on and being able to report that back to the medical team. So I think there's so many reasons that caregivers are so essential in that sort of journey around the medical system, because the medical system can be very difficult to navigate. So it's not just that one appointment, but it might be then you're referred and you're in kind of, the twilight zone waiting for this next appointment. And what do you do between those appointments? And so I think it's even bigger than just the one appointment, which is also important, but it's that journey of medical care and how does that caregiver support their loved one during that journey.
And there's references to the idea of formal and informal caregiving. Can you tell us what the differences between these two things would be?
Mm-hmm. Well, when you think about formal caregiving, that really is someone who has been trained to be a caregiver. So a personal support worker or other types of individuals, and they're paid for that. So they are a formal caregiver. And informal caregiving tends to be unpaid, and it's done by a loved one. And often we see both being involved in a person, depending on how difficult their disease state is and where they're at. You can have both informal and formal caregiving happening at any given time.
So every time I talk to someone else for this show, I learned so much. And specifically when it comes to caregivers, there are so many different scenarios under which someone could become a caregiver and so many different conditions that they might be dealing with. And each one has its specifics. It has its own language. It has its own journey. What do you think the biggest challenge is for caregivers within the chronic condition, pain management, and arthritis sector? What would be sort of more key to those particular people?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think for people who are dealing with rheumatoid arthritis, one of the things that can occur are flare-ups. So they can have episodes where they cannot get out of bed. I spoke to a person who's on our board, and his wife, he had to carry her, and she's 42 and they have two young kids. So it can be that, and then there can be periods where the person is fine. And so it's episodic. It can be episodic. And I think that can be difficult in a chronic disease because you're almost layering both a chronic perspective of the disease on top of acute episodes. So that can be very stressful for a caregiver because you have a period that the person is, their medication is managing their disease, things are going relatively well, and then boom, something happens. And so then the caregiver needs to sort of really get in there, and they're not prepared for it. So I think this is so interesting and makes caregiving for the people with those autoimmune diseases especially difficult and especially stressful, both for the person who's living with the disease, but also for that caregiver who is watching this happen. It's almost like you go through hope and then you're sort of back into despair that something has happened, and you see that disease much more vividly for a period of time. So I would say that for that caregiver, just really being able to understand what's happening, to almost not be surprised that it can happen, that these flares happen, to sort of accept the disease as it is and not to try and make it something that it will never be. There's no cure. So, we're just trying to manage symptoms as best as we can. I think about on the osteo side, for people like my mom who have severe osteoarthritis, for them, it's more that chronic pain and the inability to do things, and sort of the slipping away of tasks that they could previously do that now they can't do, whether it's, she now can't walk very far. So we have to always keep that in mind, or she will pick something up and then it'll just drop out of her hand. And so we're just kind of like mindful of what at this point can she do? It's a progressive disease. She is only going to get worse. Very difficult for caregivers to watch that and to accept it.
Young people across Ontario are caring for loved ones while trying to manage the stresses of work, school, and life. If you're a young caregiver looking for support, the Ontario Caregiver Organization offers Young Caregivers Connect. Through Young Caregivers Connect, you can get the support you need, join a live chat, and share stories with other young caregivers. You are not alone. Join the community at youngcaregiversconnect.ca.
And just touching on that, and you did mention this piece a bit before, but when I was thinking about the person in my life that was dealing with osteoarthritis, they were in their 50s, and active, and it is that pain piece that is constant. And even though eventually the hip replacement did happen, and that was its whole own journey, the effect on the mood and the outlook of a person that is in constant pain is challenging. What it does to their sort of their personality during that time, because it's difficult to live with pain every single day.
Yeah, Michelle, I think that's so well said. I think about if you've had just one poor night's sleep and how much that can affect your day and your ability to mentally manage whatever it is that you have to do. And think about people who are woken up by pain all the time. So they are, chronically sleep deprived and trying to manage the physical with this now mental, and, sort of having brain fog and all the things that come with that interruption of sleep. So it's quite a journey, isn't it, in terms of both the person living with the disease, but also, to your point, the people that are watching this unfold and need to interact with that person to, get groceries or have a conversation or do all the things that. So I think that idea of, for that caregivers always need to be empathetic. And I think this is almost the hardest part of being a caregiver. Pouring out empathy all day long is exhausting. And no wonder some days you just think, Oh my gosh. Like this, like you do need breaks. You need to make sure that you are in touch with how you are doing
Mm.
so that you can, in fact, be a good caregiver and be a good support for that person. So there is no doubt that as a caregiver, you also need to check in with yourself and do the things that you need to do to be a good support for that loved one.
Drawing from your professional role with the Arthritis Society and your personal caregiving experience, do you think that when we're dealing with someone that has a chronic condition or is in a pain management situation, is there any different approach that a caregiver should consider taking versus other situations, or do you have anything else that you would suggest?
I, with my mom, who is in a lot of pain, I know that we really try and just keep her engaged to the extent that's possible. And we try and make her life as easy as possible with respect to doing things that she likes to do. So, for example, she likes heat, so hot tubs or saunas or things like that. So we really try and make sure that we can get her to an amenity where that a gym. And again, the pandemic has been so hard for some of these things. She likes to do aqua classes, and those have not been available. So finding what are the things, like making sure that you can support them to you. First of all, do you know the things that make them feel better? Like, do you know that they like playing Candy Crush, which my mom likes to do before she goes to bed? Like, what is it that they like to do that takes their mind off their pain, that is a bit of a distraction, that can either physically or mentally help them manage? I think as a caregiver, you need to know what that list is so that you can access that list if they are too tired or too exhausted to access it. So I think that's really important. And that goes sort of back to one of the main points around caregiving, is that communication, which is so important, isn't it? To just make sure that you're touching in and what's going on today and how are you doing and what did you hope to do today that maybe you can't do, and can I help you do that? And I think also asking for that permission is also really important. I don't know about the person that you're referring to, but I know my mom is fiercely independent, and so anybody telling her what to do, it's not going to go over that well. So we really just trying to be supportive, but not make her feel like you're helping her, if I can say it that way.
I completely can relate to a lot of that. And it makes a lot of sense because, everybody wants to feel like they have some autonomy. And especially when you're talking about the fact that this strikes people at all ages and stages of their life, it makes total sense. Are there any particular techniques or resources that you have tapped into and used during your caregiver experience?
Yeah, I am a meditator, and I am probably the most reluctant meditator on the planet, because now it's kind of cool to do mindfulness training and all of this kind of thing. But when I first started doing it, I just thought, this is crazy. I can't do this. This is so hard. But I really did stick with it. I probably started doing it about 20 years ago and now have brought it into my life on a daily basis. And I think it has literally saved my life many times, in different times of one's ups and downs, and just having a way to ground yourself, having a tool that can just help you put your brain and your mind and your thoughts at ease and quiet them down. We all think a lot and have a lot of thoughts, and they come in fast and furiously, and taking that time to calm that down, I think, is really helpful. And it has been a tool in my toolbox that has been, really, really helpful. And especially times that can be moments that are just so frustrating. And, I remember taking my mom to an appointment and then being told I couldn't go in. It was a whole COVID thing. So, she doesn't speak English, is not her first language. She barely speaks English, I thought. So I sort of she goes. her phone is dead. And apparently I didn't know that. I thought she had her phone. She does not have her phone. So now I'm kind of outside the building. She's inside the hospital. I can't find her. I don't know where she is. I don't know what's going on. She doesn't have another pair of ears to help her navigate what's going on. I was so stressed out. Like I couldn't believe it. This little tiny moment just got me so riled up in so many ways. And it almost triggers like the pandemic, I think, has probably brought other anxiety to people. And so it almost brings everything to the forefront, doesn't it? And I think this is the thing about caregiving, and maybe even about life. Like, it can take 1 second for you to go from you're okay to you are not okay. And what are the tools that can help you do the right thing, to think clearly, to say the right thing, what has to happen. And I think that mindfulness techniques can be super helpful in that regard. I mean, exercise, we definitely say for people with arthritis that you have to move, especially on the osteo side, but also on the rheumatoid arthritis. It's so good both mentally and physically, and the joints need the movement. And so exercise, I would say, and certainly we know that it's so important. It's just so hard to adhere to. And again, so challenging if you don't have those outlets that you normally have available to you. But I think that you just have to find a way to do some exercise, do some movement. And that can be extremely helpful, I think, both for the person who, in this case, is suffering from arthritis, but also for the caregiver, to make sure that they get their fresh air, go for a walk, do whatever it is that helps them move. So I think those are two big ones. Those are two big ones that are super important. And to my mom too, for my mom as well, exercise is super important.
For sure. And the body-mind connection for both the caregiver and the person that is receiving the care, incredibly important. And I think you've given us so much great advice. But if you can think of anything else, maybe for someone who is just starting their caregiving experience for someone with a chronic condition with arthritis, is there anything else that you would say?
I'm going to repeat what I said earlier, because I know for me, this is a very difficult thing, which is acceptance. It's very difficult to accept that your loved one is not going to be cured from what they have, that they potentially will never be better, that we might be able to manage the pain. We might be able to manage their flares. We might be able to manage some of the management of that condition, but they will always have it. And in osteo, they are going to get worse. I think, honestly, that I still have challenges accepting that. So I think for a caregiver, it kind of can cause both expectations that are unrealistic and frustration that is not warranted. So I think, to me, that's like really important with a chronic disease is, you know what, this is it. I am going to radically accept this for you as the person that's living with it, and for me as the person who's trying to help you. And I think that can be liberating. So I would say, like, that's important. And I think education. So really helping yourself, that knowledge base, making sure that you feel confident that you can speak to, in the case of the rheumatoid arthritis, you can speak to the rheumatologist. You can understand the words that they're using. You can ask questions that are going to be helpful. So just really making sure that you take the time to educate yourself as much as possible, so you've got that confidence. I think on the osteo side as well, the journey in healthcare can be tricky. It can start and stop, and you might get lost for a while and then have to find how to get plugged back in. And so I think that and then maybe I would add, another one would be not to be afraid to be an advocate, not to be afraid to speak up, not to be afraid to think, oh, this is a dumb question. There is no dumb question when you're dealing with a chronic disease. Ask anything, ask everything. And I think that having that confidence to do that with medical and professional staff is also really important.
We appreciate so much your advice, your perspective and your knowledge, and we certainly appreciate the resources that the Arthritis Society does provide and the advocacy as well for our caregivers. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Trish.
I'm delighted. Thank you so much.
It's been great chatting with you.
You too. Take care.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. You can access more details about support services on our website, ontariocaregiver.ca. Until next time, I'm Michelle Jobin, and you have been listening to Time to Talk, a podcast for caregivers. We hope you have a wonderful day.